Welcome to the First Time Facilitator podcast. Whether you're a first-time facilitator or a seasoned pro, listen in for tips and tricks to make a bigger impact at the next workshop you deliver. And now, your host, Leanne Hughes.
I would like to welcome back onto the First Time Facilitator podcast. I'm going to call this a pop-up episode, and we do these from time to time to celebrate some really cool things in the facilitation world. And it's a return guest, Jan Keck. He was an episode on 156 of First Time Facilitator, and I think it's over like maybe 100 episodes now, and you're back, Jan. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Leanne. And I actually was thinking, I think I was on your podcast even twice, because once we did something about the Zoom cheat sheet that I created during the pandemic to just help people navigate Zoom and have something to share with their participants so they know where to click. And just this week, I actually was looking at that again, because I'm doing a complicated hybrid event that is not my favorite, but I'm like, oh, is there something I should be sharing with participants ahead of time so they're able to navigate that hybrid work?
I remember that, like that cheat sheet was so awesome. And I used it with my clients. I forwarded it on. It was really helpful, like very user-friendly. And so I guess you've got this knack of creating really helpful resources for facilitators. And that's why you're back for the triple, like for the third time on the show. Jan, what have you brewed up? Like what's going on in your world?
So we're just a month away from the 3-year anniversary of me writing a book that is now like we're at the end of this big process of this big project. And if I look back even a little bit further than the 3 years, it was actually when we met in London, where you were, I think your book was not out yet, but you were like very fast in writing it. And I was so inspired that there was this book idea that I shared with a friend. And up until that point, I never thought that I would ever be writing a book. But somehow the conversations in that week were like, hey, have you ever thought about writing a book? That question came up several times. So
it did. I remember our conversation, even though it was like a few hours after we started, like, it was a long lunch and then, but I remember having this conversation with you and getting very excited about the topic.
Yeah. And now that 3 years later, all the journeys of the topic of the book shifting, like in the beginning, I actually thought I'll be writing about facilitating human connection. Then that kind of got more focused on trying to reframe icebreakers, because I personally have this, I guess I have lots of experience as a participant, not really enjoying being put on the spot so early on, having to do something ridiculous that I can't seem to find the reason how that's related to the session. That became kind of the focus. And then I realized the topic is actually much bigger than just changing the activities that we do in a session.
So talk to me about the evolution of this book concept, because I know, as someone who's also written a book, like I went through a similar thing. I think the hardest part is actually really narrowing in on what is this about. It's the hardest part. Like once I knew what that arrow was, it was easy to write, but it was evolution. I've been wanting to write a book since, actually 2020. So 2023 was 3 years for me when the 2 hours, and that was an evolution of like, maybe it's lunch and learns, maybe it's just like the workshop type of guidebook. And then, you're kind of just skirting around it. So talk about the evolution process for you. Was it just having conversations? Was it picking up on what you were most curious about or what clients were asking you? Like, how did you narrow in on the topic? And can you share the topic with listeners as well?
Yeah, the book is now called the Campfire Method. So instead of focusing on ice melters, which is just trying to, like in the beginning, it was trying to improve the activities that we run. So instead of icebreakers, we're going to do ice melters, and they're just going to be facilitated a little bit differently. But I realized early on that there's so many more small opportunities for facilitators, for leaders, where you can create an environment where the ice is melting that has nothing to do with running an activity. It's all of the things that you do before people show up in the room, like how you communicate what the event will be about, how you set expectations in the reminders, how you might send a video message to let people know who you are. So when you walk in the room, you're not a complete stranger. All of these things, including what does the room actually look like when people open the door? If it's virtual, like what's the first thing that they will see, what they're invited to participate and engage with, rather than you saying, hey, let's just wait until everybody's here, which kind of kills the engagement in those first few minutes. I've realized that it's not about, that one activity, but all of these moments that added up will help you melt the ice. So the book now is about because it's called the Campfire Method, all these steps that you need to do to build a campfire. And that's what actually melts the ice. The larger the fire becomes, the more ice gets melted.
Oh, that's really smart. I like that the visual metaphor as well. But you also got your start in camps, didn't you? Like, is that right, or am I making that up?
You mean summer camps?
Yeah.
That was maybe the first place that I would say I facilitated something when I was
Love
a
that.
teenager.
Yeah.
Being a camp counselor, and there was one time in my life where I was looking at all the things that I love to do today are basically things I did at summer camp. Like the idea of running workshops, of creating experiences, of getting people to go out into nature, all of that, the fun games, the aha moments. I feel like a lot of that goes back to, being a summer camp counselor.
That's so great. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you'll see this beautiful sort of campfire. Is it a light? Like, what have you got going on? Is that like an LED
It's
light
an
you've
LED
got?
light.
Yeah. Super cool. I love it. Very on brand. Jan. Okay, so your book's coming out. Are you able to give us a bit of a secret into what this method entails?
Yes. So I already shared it's lots of small moments that are kind of accumulating, but there's one part that I think is the most important, and that's the order of how we invite our participants to take risks. And that was kind of the initial idea that then became larger in the book because hold on, I just traveled last week and I did take my log. I usually have like a firewood log next to me that I can show, but now it's in some suitcase behind me.
Yeah.
Because that's the challenge. If you have this big log, and that kind of represents the largest risk that we ask our participants to take. And depending on what you're doing, that largest risk could be as simple as somebody raising their hand and sharing an idea in front of the group. This could also mean, if you're doing, let's say, a presentation training, getting up and doing a full presentation that you've never held before. It could be, if you're doing something more experiential, actually jumping off a cliff, like going down a mountain on a rope, jumping out of an airplane. Like the risk depends on the work that you do, but the largest risk is the one that you can't start with. Now I'm thinking of jumping out of an airplane. If like the first thing that we would do is, before we even talk about safety and everything, we're just going to go up to the plane, and the first thing you have to do, without knowing even who you're jumping out with, is let's jump out and then we'll figure out the rest later. Right? Way too big of a risk.
Yes, definitely.
So the idea is that we create this risk ramp where we start with something that is very easy for people to opt in. The risk is very small. And then with the next step, we kind of increase that a little bit. And this is also where you'll see the difference between somebody who's just beginning to lead groups and facilitate, and somebody who's really experienced in it, because the speed that you go really depends on you reading the room and figuring out what the group needs. Because some groups you might be able to go a lot faster, and other groups you need to go slower. You need to kind of break down those steps into smaller increments.
Yeah. And how do you, I mean, you're right, like there are quite a few variables in working with different groups. I mean, if they're like an intact team who've done a lot of stuff together, it might be easier, or they might already be like a set culture, which is difficult to break, and they've already established that they're maybe a low risk group around each other, or they might be just like random people that are in the room, but they have a common mission, so they maybe are more willing to take that risk. How do you kind of assess that? Do you assess it in the moment, or do you kind of do a bit of pre-thinking around what is the potential risk tolerance for the group?
I like to do as much research as I can before I step into the room, because I'm not somebody who likes those types of surprises. Like, I like surprise in other places in my life, but when I walk into a room and work with a group, I want to be as prepared as possible. So if I'm working with a organization, for example, and I'm working with a team, of course, I would have a conversation with the manager or the team lead, or maybe even individuals on that team, to get a sense of what's the culture like. How well do people know each other? I'm doing a team retreat in just 2 weeks, and it's for a board, and there are 12 people. I think 9 or 10 of them have been with the board for a while, but 2 of them are brand new. They only meet virtually once a month, where they don't really have time to get to know each other. So it still feels, after like a couple months in, that those 2 people are still strangers to the rest of the group.
Yeah.
That gives me lots of insights that we need to make sure that there's time for people to actually have deeper conversations, spend more time with each other than just doing, like, getting into like risky things right away, because those 2 people might not feel comfortable yet in front of the rest of the group.
So is that how you would sell it to the client? Because I often find that battle as well, where it's like, obviously they're getting people together. It's like a couple of days. There's like a laundry list of outcomes they want. And then we're coming in going, yeah, how well do they know each other, and the connection part? It can be sometimes a difficult sell. What's your experience with clients on that?
I would say I'm very lucky that, based on the work that I do, people that approach me usually know that they need that, and that's why they're coming to me. Like, for this team retreat, it's 2 days, and on day 2 they're doing all of the strategic thinking and visioning and like hands-on stuff, where I come in on day 1 to just focus on the connection stuff.
That is awesome. Yeah. Because that's part of the brand, I guess, why they're like, we want Yarn, because Yarn can create that level of safety within our teams to have real conversations.
But I think that's exactly what it is too, right? It's getting a group to the point where they're ready to have those maybe challenging conversations. Like, there are, in this case, things going on that might not be that easy to talk about. Also, I've heard that in some sessions they're having, not everybody is actually participating, like people stay quiet.
Yes.
And again, that's to me one of those groups of people that I feel very connected to, because I often was that quiet person in a group that would not have the courage to raise my hand, although I had a great idea, but I just wasn't comfortable speaking in front of the group yet. And a icebreaker, in a traditional sense, that forces me to speak in front of the group would be the exact opposite, or somebody putting me on the spot. Okay, Jan, we haven't heard from you. What do you think? If I haven't had time to actually formulate what I want to say, that putting on the spot would be the worst thing you could do. So getting a group where, number one, we facilitate it in a way where it's structured, that everybody can participate, even if they're not comfortable speaking in front of a group, by giving them time to write something down first, or sharing it in a smaller group rather than the larger group.
Yeah.
That will also give them the confidence to then later say, hey, now I've tested this idea a couple of times. Now I'm actually confident that I have something valuable to share. I'll raise my hand.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me, like, I remember when I was in Hong Kong, and it was quite, like, in terms of culture, there was a group I was working with, and I remember when their actual, like, leader of the business left the room, they all, like, started contributing. But when the leader was in the room, they were very quiet. But the other thing I noticed, so that's like a status thing, but I actually adjusted, like, when I was put them into groups to share, and then I asked for someone to share back, the language I used was like, hey, what did your group think? Not what did you as an individual think? And like, gave them that collective responsibility. And I found just that phrasing helped more people, like, get comfortable, because I was sharing the group's perspective, not their own. And so you're totally right about these micro moments and phrasing, and like, what else can we look out for as facilitators?
The one other thing that I now, so in the beginning of the book, and this is something that also has only happened in like the last, I want to say, in the last 10% of writing, I've decided to add the 5 conditions for melting the ice. And there's 5 things that should be present. Everybody can feel like, I'm ready to uncross my arms, open up, be ready to connect, to share something, to take a risk. And one of those things is, people need a choice. The tricky thing, again, with a lot of icebreakers is it's forced participation. Like, you have to do this. We're going to go around the room and everybody has to share a fun fact. And going around the room in the beginning, again, it's the spotlight that some people just don't feel comfortable yet. And if then it's forced participation, you're basically asking them to be in this really uncomfortable moment. And your intentions might have been good. Like, you want people to share, you want people to know who else is here, you want them to be able to connect. But some people will actually feel more disconnected to the group because the whole time while we're going around the room, they're in their head. And I'm, again, talking about myself here, first-hand experience, I would be in my head trying to rehearse what I'm going to say, what I'm going to say.
Same. And look, Jan, I'm a massive extrovert. I mean, you know that, but I still I still get nervous around that going around the circle. No one's worried about anyone else. No one's listening. Everyone's so focused internally. I had to jump in there, but yeah, even as an extrovert, I don't like it.
I know it's a lot of people, and you're not listening, right? The whole point of this is to find out who else is in the room. But if half of the room is not listening, then why don't we do something differently? And to me, again, choice is such a big component of this. Like, can we build choice in every activity, or even in the way we design a session, where people can choose taking that maybe larger step if they're ready for it, and maybe a smaller step if they're not ready for it yet. So for me, that often is online. I do this kind of naturally now. There's always this moment where I ask people to do a debrief. Ideally, I've already given them time to think about what their answer to the question might be. Maybe they've shared it in a breakout room already. So now that people are coming back, or we've done an experience, an activity, doing the debrief, I ask people to either share something in the chat or raise their hand to unmute. Like that very simple choice between those two things. And then also valuing every chat message the same way you would value somebody speaking out loud really sets the tone that, hey, this is okay. I don't need everyone to speak. The chat is a really valuable alternative. And I see very often that people start using it and they're actually contributing a lot. And if we don't give them the option or don't remind them, we might just think, oh, half of the room is disengaged. They're bored, or they're just quiet.
I love chat as like a lead indicator of engagement. And even like when someone reacts to a comment, sometimes it's if someone reacts and puts a funny emoji there, sometimes I'll acknowledge that, because you kind of want people lighting up each other's comments as well and bringing in that engagement too. How did you, so I love that you just shared that in the last, you've added this 10% in. I mean, that's the hard thing about a book is like, when does it stop? But you've kind of alluded to, you spoke about raising your hand before. And I know recently you spoke at a TEDx event and you actually demonstrated this. I'd love you to share the story with listeners.
Yeah, that was just a couple of days ago, like 5 days ago, that I was at TEDx Freiburg in like the south of Germany, where I asked the group, it was 350 people in the audience, to take a risk. And it was challenging in a way that I think anybody who's ever prepared for a TEDx talk, or maybe you've even seen them, I feel like the bar is quite high in terms of public speaking. Like, yes, I've spoken in front of groups before, I've been at conferences, but TEDx, just the amount of preparation that goes into it. You have a speaking coach. They want you to like send the slides 2 weeks ahead of time, and all these things that made me go like, oh, but how am I going to still be able to improvise in the moment and kind of react to what the group needs? I very often would like skip slides depending on what is happening in the room, but I did not have that option. So I really need to spend a lot of time thinking of what are the steps that will get me to the point where ideally everyone is able to take that risk and participate and get the impact of what I wanted to do with them. And what I wanted to do with them is ask them to come up with secret handshakes. So create a completely new greeting with somebody that they don't know in a collaborative way, where one person might start with a high five, then the next person says, okay, and then we're going to spin around, and then the next person says, and then we're going to jump in the air and do a high 10, and kind of co-create something that is so complicated that nobody else will have the same structure, but you can still remember it and repeat it. So whenever you greet this person, you could have that secret handshake that just belongs to the two of them. And what I did as the first thing is, number one, I told a story of a networking event experience that was really painful for me, where I just had moved to Toronto in Canada, didn't know a lot of people. So I heard about this very special networking event that I signed up for. And when I arrived, everybody was standing there in little groups and talking to each other. It was quite loud, but I did not have the courage to walk up to a group or to someone and like start a conversation. So I took out my phone and I was on my phone.
Yeah.
until luckily one person approached me, and I was very excited because I'm like, oh, great, maybe this could be a new friend. Again, I was new in the city. I really want to make some connections, except that when he started talking to me, the first thing I remember him saying is that he was an insurance broker. And I didn't even ask him what he does yet, but he gave me his pitch of all the things that he offers. And I was listening very, very politely. And at one point I had his business card in my hand. And then the next moment I saw, when he was then asking me, so what do you do? His eyes kind of wandering over my shoulders off to the next person. And I just felt so invisible in that moment.
Yes.
That I said, okay, I don't know if I can do this if all the conversations are going to be like that. So that's the story that I shared in the beginning, because at the event, I ran out of energy after having the same conversation like 5-6 times. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go home. The problem was the networking event, the special networking event, was on a boat. And we had already left.
No, that's hilarious. Captive audience.
Yeah, so there was no escaping, except what I ended up doing is I hid in the washroom.
No.
Because I'm like, I can't do this anymore. This is too painful. Yeah, I kind of said that this is the reason why we have to do something differently at networking events. And I really want to teach the audience at TEDx how to have the courage to maybe speak to someone, because that would have not happened if I just had the courage to speak to the first person and maybe have a chance to meet somebody that I have things in common with, that maybe also does not want to be there and talk about, so what do you do?
Yeah.
So after that story, I asked people, hey, who's here to meet somebody? Who would like to meet somebody new without that question? Very few hands went up. I was like, now I'm a little bit worried about what I'm asking them to do next. But at the same time, I had planned my sequence. I've planned my risk ramp of getting people there. Just a moment later, I basically told them that we're going to try this experiment to help you connect with someone. And if you're up for the experiment, you can kind of wiggle one finger. A few more fingers would go up. Then I would invite them to just, in Germany, there's this whole culture of you shake hands when you meet someone. And sometimes it's really awkward because I'm usually a person that likes to hug. But like even with my grandma, she would shake my hand. It took a very long time for me to switch to giving her a hug and her being okay with that. So I said, let's try something different and just high five the person left and right of you. And people were like in their seat, high fiving people. And already you could see them opening up and starting to smile. So I think they were ready for the third step, which was getting up from their seat and doing creative high fives. I also told them the very creative people go to TEDx. So I have no worries that this will not work. And creative high fives is anything that is not a regular high five. Really high up in the air, behind your back, between your legs, with the left hand, just with one finger, with 10 fingers, with both hands. And I gave them 30 seconds to collect as many as possible. And the room just went crazy. It was loud. People even were running up to me on stage, giving me high fives. Like the energy was shifting very quickly. Yeah. That when we got to the actual secret handshake, I needed to bring the attention back. I use my favorite secret tricks that I'll also share with you on how to get the attention back in a loud room of 350 people running around and high-fiving, which is, if you can hear me, clap once. If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times. And by that time, I was already getting a standing ovation at my own TED Talk. Everybody was clapping and looking at the stage. And it's something I learned from a kindergarten teacher, but it so works even with adults.
Yeah. Often the best things do, don't they? Like going just to get attention. If you can get it from kids, you can definitely get it from adults. So very quickly, you've just, I mean, yeah, like it would have been interesting, like getting that sense of like only a few people put their hands up, and then going from that to then a room that was chaotic and enjoyable and the energy had lifted as well. What you just said there as well is that you actually outsourced your confidence to the group. You said, hey, TEDx, you're a bunch of creative people. Like you gave them that aspirational identity. Was that intentional?
For sure. Yes. Because I think people are often like, they might be hesitant because they don't believe in themselves. Like just giving them that extra boost, and maybe also reminding them like, hey, you have things in common here. Like, this is not, yes, we're talking about like connecting with strangers, but if you go to a TEDx conference, you have probably very similar values. You're probably more alike than you think. And that little reminder might have been enough to get a few more people to open up.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a really powerful thing to do. And like you said, they're driven to go to TEDx because of particular reasons. And so you'll just harness that in that instruction as well. What have you learned? Oh, sorry,
Sorry, I also just remembered one other question that I asked them even before that is like, who showed up with a friend and who came by themselves? To appreciate the people who had the courage to even show up to an event by themselves, because how disappointing would it be if you go to an event yourself, you hear all of these great ideas, but you don't talk about it with anyone. There's I think always a magic that happens when you go to TEDx, because there's so many different talks on different topics that inspire you and make you think. But often it's the quieter moments afterwards where you process it, where you debrief it. And even thinking of people running workshops and trainings, and if you're just doing activities, even the cheesiest icebreaker could become a really meaningful activity if we stopped or paused afterwards and had a debrief of what happened.
Agree.
Even asking, hey, what was going on inside you when you didn't raise your hand and participate? Like, those questions make even failed activities meaningful.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, because you can figure out like what was it about that, and then that definitely creates a good conversation. And I really like that question that who came with someone, because like I know when I go to events on my own, I just assume everyone has friends, and I'm like the only person that's rocked up solo. So even to get a nice indication that, okay, even though I am solo, I'm not alone. There's other people here that have also rocked up solo, because you kind of look at other people and think, oh, everyone's got their own friendship group. So that was nice that you did that. What have you learned about yourself writing this book, Jan?
I've learned something, luckily, going down the right route. Actually, I've maybe only realized it afterwards, that I've done something that worked really well for me that doesn't work for everybody else, especially when it comes to writing a book. Because I saw Priya Parker release her new book just recently, and she wrote a post. Finally, after 5 years, I get to talk about this book, and now it's available for pre-order. I'm like, how can you keep this a secret for 5 years and not talk about it with your community? Like, how insane, like so insane to me. Because to me, I told my community I'll be writing a book before I even knew what it was going to be about. And I told them, I'll be needing your support to hold me accountable that this book actually gets created. And I'll be sharing a piece of the book, a piece of my writing every Monday. And in every email that you get, you will have 3 links where you can give me feedback. Wasn't really interesting today, or this really resonated. And then people can also elaborate. They can I use Video Ask, a tool that I know you also like to use, where they can send me a video message, audio message, or a text message based on what they clicked. And with that feedback, that actually kept me motivated in keeping writing. This was also the first time I feel like in my life where I've been consistent with something for that long. I've not missed
that's
a
amazing.
single week in the 3 years, even when I was sick, even when I was on vacation, because I set the bar so low that I said an email counts if I write, hey, sorry, I couldn't write the email today, but I sent that out. To me, that was like it just needs to be going out. What it's inside doesn't really matter. But the promise is, of course, it's going to be something from the book. And in the middle, I kind of lost track a little bit. And I started writing emails every week. And then I realized, hey, I'm writing emails, but that's not the book content. I should be like writing book content and then take something from that and put it in the email. So it kind of helped me refocus. And I think also finish the book in the end, because I had that time blocked in my calendar every week.
I love that. And you really you're all about community. And so you leverage that in the way that you wrote as well. And did you get any feedback that was that surprised you, or did it kind of validate what you were already thinking?
No, I got such great feedback on a lot of different things, from like me sharing an idea, not being sure if that's actually an idea that people are unaware of. Is that something new, or is this just repeating what everybody knows already and then getting the feedback, oh no, this actually is really valuable, please talk about this more.
Yeah.
And I've also changed my opinions on certain things, not only through the conversations from people giving me feedback in the email. I also did several rounds of beta reading where people actually read whole chapters and gave me feedback there. And I'm also teaching these things in my workshops and trainings and having debriefs and conversations with people in that. And there was one big thing that I actually did, like it changed my whole facilitation, because I had this conversation about group commitments, about group agreements, community agreements, the idea of we're setting up rules before we like when we work with a new group.
Yeah.
And I realized at one point, yes, I was teaching that to people. And because I often would set up some of these rules for myself when I work with a new group, until somebody made me aware of, is this just a checklist thing, or you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing it, or are you actually doing it for a reason? And is the reason that you're setting up the rules to help the group or to help yourself? And I had the hard realization, well, I'm like mostly worried that people will, I don't know, talk for too long, and then I will not have permission to interrupt them and get the attention back and do my job, where that rule does only help me, it doesn't help the group. So I re-looked at that whole concept, and now I was inspired by somebody else, Marsha Shandur. She's actually, we first met through her storytelling work. She also helped me on a previous TEDx talk with storytelling, but she also runs storytelling workshops. And in there, instead of agreements, she shares promises. Here's what I will do.
Yeah.
And that's the shift that I've adapted now, where I can't control what happens in a room. Like I can't, and like nobody can say, hey, this is a safe space. Like you can't, you're not in control of that.
Yeah.
But you can tell people what to expect if certain things happen.
Yeah.
Like if somebody talks for too long, you will see me raising my hand, and very kindly, I will remind you that we want to make sure that we get to everyone.
Yes.
That is my promise, that my job is to make sure that we share our time equally.
Yes.
I might still need a commitment from you to make sure that when I do put up my hand, that you kind of stop talking. But it's more of, what am I going to do to make the space feel more safe for the group to collaborate better together?
Yeah, I love that idea around like promises. That's brilliant. And like, because the rules of engagement, like rules, and if I hear it's a rule, I'm like, ugh. But a promise is definitely more intentional, I think. And it is that shared commitment with the group. Yeah, and I'm sure people listening to this are getting really excited about this book and how practical it is, and also your ideas and your metaphors with the campfire and the log and the risk ramp, like really powerful. What's the go? Like, where can we grab it? Tell us, give us the goss.
So if you go to campfiremethodbook.com, that's where you, depending on when you listen to this, will find different things. You might find just a way to sign up to my email list because the book's already out, and probably links of where to purchase it based on where you are in the world. That's kind of looking further into the future. But if you're listening to this in April 2026, I'm actually doing a limited edition pre-sales campaign, because I've decided that, Amazon will be where the book will be kind of long-term, because that's just easy for a global audience to get it without having to pay so much for shipping. But it's not the best quality that you can get. So I'm putting together a 150 copies limited edition that are all going to be signed by me, hand numbered. I'm also planning to add like custom inscriptions. So I'll be sending out a little form where people can write something. And based on that, I will share a message and write that in the book. Like I'm actually putting in a lot of work, because I also know for a certain person, this will not be a book that you read just once, but one that you want to grab whenever you're working with a new group. Kind of remind you of some of the things. Like I said, like you said, it's very hands-on. There's lots of like very tangible tips in there that I think are good to review often. So that will also be on that link. So that might be the best place to go. And then, you just have to be surprised by what is there. I haven't finished the page yet right now, so I don't even know what exactly will be there.
I love that. That is a surprise for everyone that's listening right now. It is fun doing those bonuses and just thinking what's on the page. I remember evolving it, like, you know, had something in my mind and then I'm like, oh, well, this would be more useful. And things change over time depending on what readers like as well, or templates they might need. So yeah, I'm so proud of you. Congratulations on becoming an author. Really excited to see how the book goes. And I love the idea of the 150, like the special copies that you're going to release as well. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Are there any sort of final thoughts or words that you'd like to share with listeners as well?
I think I also wanted to thank you for inspiring me to write this book, because I remember when I saw your book journey and you invited me to give you some feedback on your book, I got really excited because I could see what it's like when you get to that stage. And I also want to tell you, I don't know how you were able to pull this off so fast, because there were several times in my journey where I'm like, wow, Leanne did this in like a couple of months. And I'm like years into the process. But of course, with a lot of the things that we share online, what you don't see is all of the secret things, the thinking that happens behind the scenes that we don't usually talk about, right? So we only compare ourselves to like, oh, I've just had a viral video. Well, no, but you've been creating videos for 10 years and you've consistently showed up, right? So it's that reminder that I think people also need to have. If you see somebody else having a success releasing something, there's a lot of work that goes into it that might not have been visible from the beginning.
It's totally not obvious. Yeah, you're right. And even as I'm writing my next book, I'm drawing on actually some stories that I've just, you know, from like an episode of First Time Facilitate, like episode 8. And I'm like, oh, that story was really good. And so I had to go back and find it. And yeah, it's that accumulation of experience as well. And it's not visible, but there is a lot of labor and it can be tough. So that's why I'm thrilled for you and excited to share this. We'll put, like I said, a link in the show notes on that. And Jan, thanks for jumping on. I know it was nice and early for you over in Germany. Thanks for jumping on the show. It's always good to chat, and very excited to, see the book in the world. So thanks again.
Thanks for inviting me back. I really appreciate it.